So the Hillary campaign has dragged out the Black Caucus to go after Sanders with the superdelegates thing to make him look like a racist. Will it work? There's a lot of people that still live in a reality where the media can define things for them like this. I think that there's not enough. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Which is why I think he shouldn't back down. He should fight back. This is the kind of thing that we're going to see, right? There's all this talk in the media, about how Sanders will be more effective in the Senate, or he's overplaying his hand. What the Democratic Party is going to do is they're going to tar him as a racist. They're going to primary him. They're going to do everything they can to tear him down, get rid of him. He took on the Clintons, and he lost, and he's probably going to be unemployed within a short amount of time. That's what happens when you take on the Clintons and you lose. You don't you don't take on the Clintons and lose and then end up with influence. You take on the Clintons and lose and get destroyed, right? So yeah, they're gonna tar him as a racist. That's what they do, which is exactly why he should not back down. He should fight back. And he should let them make the argument themselves, right? I want to avoid language about nooses for obvious reasons, and I don't say that to be provocative. That would be the language that I would normally use. I'm actually conceding that I shouldn't use that language. But if the Black Caucus wants to uphold a democratic process for their own benefit, let them do that. Let them state what they're saying and let people react negatively to it. I think the focus should be making them articulate it, make them come out and make their argument. It's not going to be a popular argument, and it's not going to be well received. And then the rest of the caucus is going to have to make a choice between whether they want to buckle to minority rights, in quotes, because this is not any real concept of minority rights. It's really just an excuse to go after, do super delegates give minorities, no, right? The premise is ridiculous. You don't really have to have this argument. It's not a real debate, right? So we're not really having a debate about minority rights. They're just making it up to, not even to make their argument stronger, because it's so transparent. It's really something that they made up out of nothing in order to tar Sanders as a racist. And that's not the first time that's happened during this cycle either, right? He should not fold. He should not be quiet. He should fight back against that, because that's, like I say, this is right out of Orwell, and this is what the Clintons bring us. They bring us a reality that you can't understand without reading Orwell. On top of that, on top of the horrific nature of going after him for that, especially considering his history, what is the Black Caucus? Well, the reality is the Black Caucus is pretty much the most conservative wing of the whole party. Now, maybe that wasn't true 30 years ago, but it is now. Okay? They're not allies of anybody but the establishment and the status quo. They don't speak for black people. They don't even speak for black investors. Not only should he not shy away from articulating this, but he should accentuate his articulation of it, with the end goal of Black Caucus replacement, meaning maybe the Black Caucus should represent black people. Maybe they should go, maybe with a little bit of campaigning and a little bit of needling, a little bit of push, we can get back to the Black Caucus being one of the more liberal wings of the party, as it was previously, but is not today. What has the Black Caucus done for blacks recently? The truth is not a whole lot. All the Black Caucus has really done is stand up for the 1%, corporate interests, massive corruption. Get that out there. Get black voters in these precincts. Get them some clarity, okay, of just what it is that they're supporting. Just how deep the corruption is. And get rid of them. As one of the primary things that you should be focusing on is getting rid of all of these corrupt minorities in Parliament that go out there and say that they represent minority voices when all they represent are corporate interests. And you want to talk racism? That's actually right in Mein Kampf. This idea that the best way to control minority voices is to take a representative, pretend that it's representative of them. But, they don't speak for anyone but, the board, right? The corporate backers. They're the same as, it's the same as all the other people, right? Same as all the other House members. So if they want to do this, what they're doing is disgusting. And if they want to do it for the purposes of media optics, he should take them on. First reason is he doesn't have a choice. They're not going to stop. He took on the Clintons. The Clintons don't stop. Right? In the end, he may literally end up with broken knees. Don't be surprised if there are physical consequences, okay? This is the Clintons. They show no mercy. They destroy their enemies. And second, it's a noble goal anyways, because he has to do that, right? If he wants to have this revolution, if he wants to have this change, if he wants to have this turnover, the Black Caucus should be one of the first things that he goes after. Not something that the party uses to push him into submission with, under threats of racism. And that splits the party. If somehow, if the identity politics programming is so powerful, I don't think it is, okay? But if it is that powerful, then, we're going to have that talk, right? Because I'm sick of right-wing Democrats. And so long as we have this block of conservative black voters, we're not going to get a liberal nominee. That's a hard talk that, northern liberals are going to have. They might have to split with the South in order to get a serious liberal nominee. That tent might have to break up. It appears that the big tent is a dead end, okay? What do you think are the chances that the Democrats are going to win in South Carolina anytime soon? Okay, and it's not because of all of the racist whites. It's just because it's really conservative. And they support really conservative policies. And if this coalition is, if this coalition is going between, northern white liberals and southern black conservatives, because that's what the coalition is. Let's be real, okay? The coalition in the Democratic Party is between northern white liberals and southern black conservatives, and minorities of all other types that tend to lean right. It seems like that coalition is kind of one-sided right now. We're not getting any liberals out of it. we're just getting conservatives over and over again. Both the Clintons, Obama, Gore, Carter. It's all a bunch of conservatives. When you compare Carter to what came after him, Carter looks like a liberal. So this isn't working for Northern liberals. Now that doesn't mean we gotta go to the nuclear option right away, right? And it doesn't mean that pushing back is going to create a nuclear option right away. I actually think that he can probably get some turnover. He can replace some of these guys with liberal MPs. Or representatives, MPs, a member of parliament, as we say in Canada. And that's what I'm thinking of as House members, right? If he puts the resources down, he can get some more liberal black MPs down there. Or at least be serious enough of a threat for that turnover to happen, for people to go, maybe we should, back off a little. But I need to be clear about this, okay? That's not a minor part of what he should be doing. That should be the dominant focus. Is he should be going after these conservative black Democrats and trying to replace them with liberal black Democrats. And if he can do that, that could be the most important thing he does in transforming the Democratic Party into a more liberal institution. There's an article here about how the Black Caucus is basically just a front for corporate interests. It's true across, right? Black Caucus, the White Caucus, there's no White Caucus, Hispanic Caucus, the entire Democratic Party, right? But we think of the Black Caucus and the Hispanic Caucus as being different. They're not. Okay, they're just as corrupt as the other one, as the rest of the party. It's just particularly egregious when it's the Black Caucus because we want it to be more representative of a constituency that should be better represented. So this is not only should Bernie not fold to this, he should fight back hard, and it should be a big focus of what he's doing. But we have to understand, okay, Bernie Sanders took on the Clintons. He's not going to get off easy. He's not going to get a major role. He's probably going to be very badly destroyed, and very quickly. So there's been this kind of issue in Vancouver for a while now. Residents of Vancouver of varying ethnicities have been concerned for a while that there's this process of rich Chinese investors coming in, buying up all the property, and then boosting the price of it, and then selling it off, or renting it at exorbitant prices, and all these kinds of things, right? The result is that nobody can buy property there because the market prices are going through the roof, right? And they're trying to get the government involved, which is not something that a liberal government is going to do. It's just not. They might put some restrictions on things like idling, but the idea, is that the liberals are a market party, right? Now, they'll do some things like tax them or try to modify, incentivizing things or whatever to try to balance things out, right? But if you're looking for a party that has liberal views on property rights, you're walking into my world, and that's a good to the left of any major party in the industrialized world, really, to be honest with you. You're flirting with real socialism here. It's not clear that's what people actually want, but it seems to be what people are talking about, right? My take on this, um, even acknowledging that in my world, property rights don't really exist. If Chinese investors want to come in and drive up property taxes, the truth is that benefits everybody in the long run. You just need to get those property taxes spent on transit options and real estate developers looking towards more modest developments. So people are saying, they're driving up the rent. Well, okay. What is it the government can do to um, get property developers to build more um, uh, units that are more affordable, right? And what is it that government can do to take the money from these higher or more valuable properties, to take the taxes and distribute it into these more affordable places, right? That's something the government, that a liberal government can do. The idea that the liberal government's going to say, something like step in and say, that you can't. Houses can only be worth like this much or something, or like it doesn't or there's like rules on foreign investment as though that's really the issue is where the money's coming from, and they can't just put the money in like it's. You gotta let things happen, right? If rich people want to come in and that's where they want to live and that's where they want to put the money in, then that's going to happen. And I don't. Nobody really benefits from trying to push back against that, because all you're doing is you're decreasing the wealth of everybody. Now, like I say, you have to put systems in place to distribute the wealth that provide compensation for people that are negatively affected by people's decisions, right? So I've never understood the arguments against gentrification. The focus should be on pushing governments to help people adapt to gentrification by ensuring the money gets redistributed fairly. So, what's happening in Vancouver is a little bit more of an exaggeration than your average kind of gentrification, right? What you're talking about in Vancouver is, houses going from $300,000 to $2 million, right? This is. The problem is that the middle class is now unaffordable, right? Like we're not talking about low rent areas that are getting out of the means of the poor. We're talking about middle class areas that are becoming that are being taken over by the ultra rich, right? And we're talking the ultra rich, houses that are worth millions of dollars. If we were talking about something that fits more of the sort of typical footprint of gentrification, we would want to talk about, okay, well, and I think I went over this once before, if somebody's going to come in and put a bunch of people that are at subsidized housing levels out of throw them out on the street so they can't afford the rent anymore, well then city council or the provincial government, the state government, or the federal government should step in and say, okay, if what you're doing is going to create this effect, then you should compensate for it by putting money into new units for the people that are displaced. And we can do that either through tort law. I think that that's. I think there's a valid use of tort law in an anarchist legal system, or we could just do it through taxing, right? Right. We could either, we could talk about direct compensation, meaning that you take the money and you give it directly to the people that are displaced. Maybe it's probably not the best idea, right? Because they probably don't have the resources to utilize that most effectively. Probably the better idea is to take the tax money and put it into subsidized housing, right? This is a different situation because we're talking about, like I say, houses that were middle class houses that you couldn't afford unless you were doing well in the first place, are now houses that only the elite can afford. But what that means is that, if the property of a house goes from $200,000 to $2 million, that's a huge windfall in property taxes. The city really benefits from that, right? And especially if it's a whole neighborhood. So you're going to see humongous, windfalls for the city. And what are you really fighting against? Like, what is your argument really? Your argument is, okay, yeah, I'm poor, but I should have access to the beach. I mean, you don't really have a good argument, right? Or at least you don't have a good argument in a market system. In a market system, the people with the most money get what they want, and if you have less money, you don't get what you want, right? You would have to live in a less nice area because that's how the system works, right? But what is important there? I guess, I'm not. I couldn't see myself fighting for real estate in that sense, right? I would rather see myself fighting for the construction of new developments that are more affordable. This idea that I should be able to afford a house in the neighborhood that I want. Well, that's not how a market system works. We'll bring you over here on our side. We don't like markets. We don't like property rights. We agree with you, but we agree with you by rejecting the basis of the society that we live in and arguing for a revolution. And that is what you're arguing for. If your argument is, I should have better access to this because I want it, well then, that's, you don't have an argument in a market system. You would need to argue for a revolution. And I'm not even sure that, over on my side, over here, we're going to say, well, do you need that house there? Why do you need that? Right? Do you have kids that need extra space? Do you have a disability that requires you to be a certain proximity from something? No, you just like the view? Well, maybe it's a better idea to, like I say, try to take that money that they're bringing into the city and spend it on, doing things that will benefit you in that way, like a transit system, right? So maybe you're a little bit further from work because somebody with more money came in and kicked you out because they're higher in the hierarchy than you are. They make more money than you. They have a better job than you do. But then you can say, okay, you can take that extra tax money that they're bringing to the city. You can build a public Vancouver has a good public transit system. But you can strengthen the public transit system so that you can still get to work early or in a reasonable amount of time, right? Or maybe that you can build bike lanes so you can bike to work. Or maybe you can build new developments that takes work closer to where you live. There's lots of options there, right? But telling these people we don't want your money, I don't see where you're getting anywhere with that, right? Now that said, I do agree that there's no excuse for idle property, and I would support laws against idling property. So that means, if somebody comes in and buys a property and just doesn't do anything with it, right? And then the rents go up because they bought it for a certain amount and blah blah blah. That's bullshit, right? If you're going to buy a lot, you should have to build something on it. And if you're going to buy a building, then you should have to rent it, and et cetera, et cetera. And if it costs you money to fix it, then then you should either be fixing it or selling it, right? Just buying property and not doing anything with it is no good. And that's again, um, I have a long line of people that would all agree with me on my side of the spectrum on that point. Again, this is different than the kinds of anti-gentrification arguments that I'm used to having, because you're talking about middle class to elite, right? And it's really just people being upset that the place is being bought out by people that are better off than they are. And they're saying this isn't fair. They have more money than me. Like I say, hey, join the revolution, but it might not be really what you want either, right? You might just be an entitled piece of shit. But I've run into some anti-gentrification activists in Detroit, and they are pushing kind of the more typical gentrification arguments, right? Or anti-gentrification arguments. And when you have this discussion, I mean, it's basically the same disconnect, which is that they're not realizing that the increase in property taxes benefits them. But it's a little bit more real, because they're talking about people that are actually, in dire straits, right? People that can't just move somewhere else because they need low rent housing, right? But when you argue with them, they just end up spinning themselves around in circles. So I might say something like, you realize that the source of the problem in Detroit is that the city has no tax base, right? And I say, yeah. Well, logically, then you must realize that the city should be doing everything it possibly can to bring its tax base back. Because, if the problems they're having are that there is no tax base and they want to bring back their tax base, right? And they'll say, well, what they're doing is destroying the character of the city. Say, okay, but this character of the city you speak of is literally urban decay. The city's collapsing. And they agree. They'll say, yeah, we need to spend more on infrastructure. Our schools are falling apart. But the thing is, they're bankrupt. They don't have any money for these things because they're bankrupt, because they don't have a tax base. And they agree. Yep. Okay, well, if we're going to build a tax base, we should be trying to attract wealthier people to the city, right? And then they say no, they don't want wealthier people in the city because it'll change the city. They want to maintain a poor tax base, but they want to spend more money. As well, I'll repeat, but the city's falling apart, guys. Like, shouldn't you want to bring more wealthy people in so that you can have more money to spend on things? I say, well, we should be spending more money. They agree with that, but I say, but you're bankrupt, and they say, yeah. And then I say, shouldn't you be trying to bring in property owners with more money? And then they say, no, because it's gonna, we just end up in a back and forth that doesn't get anywhere. Eventually, I say, okay, all right, I get it, and I do get it, right? Gentrification destroys a neighborhood. Things change. It's different than it was before, right? And you don't want things to change because you're a fucking conservative. But so then why don't we take the money, take that tax money, right, and build new social housing with it? And they recoil. That's redistribution. That's communism. We can't have that. And so now I'm the one that's confused. Although I'm not really confused. I know what I'm dealing with. I say, I thought you were an anarchist. And they say, oh, sure, I'm an anarchist, but you'll never get city council to agree with you. So it's not, it's not that they don't like redistribution. It's the city council will never agree, right? And then I have to, come to the conclusion and tell them that, okay, so your conclusion then is that rather trying to win an argument with city council, you're better off just barricading out all the rich people and, being happy in your poverty. And they say no. If we spend more money on schools, that'll help us out of poverty. And then I promptly go looking for a wall so that I can bash my head against it. They'll never get anywhere with them. What they really want to do is they want to pluck the money off the trees and then use that to fix their crumbling cities without bringing any money in from the outside. They may present arguments that, you know, the money is being mismanaged, and they might be right on some level. Okay. In Detroit, it's well understood that while the management has not been ideal, there's just no tax. They don't have enough. They're not able to tax people to pay for what they need. And so they find themselves really reliant on corporate, on surrounding corporations like the Ilitches, because they don't have a tax base. But like I say, every time you try to bring that up with them, that if they would do things that would, coerce the wealthier people that live right on the other side of the city line. If you go to Ferndale or Ferndale is the one I know because Ferndale is really the only one I've been to, or Ann Arbor. Like if you go to these places, these are they're nice places. People with lots of money floating around. It's nothing falling apart out there. Brand new buildings, brand new roads, nightlife. If you would do things to try to maybe coerce them to move inside the city so that they pay taxes inside the city. But they don't want that. They want the bourgeois assholes to stay outside the city. So are we gonna, are we gonna start, taking control of some of these factories? But no, they're not gonna do that either. They're gonna work through the bourgeois system without the bourgeois in it, right? Let's have a bourgeois system of government without a bourgeoisie. Yeah. And it's especially frustrating from over here in enlightened Canada. Canadians are the master race. We should all just accept that. We will take over the world eventually. Canada, or America, you're doomed. We will destroy you. Because we are the master race. Canada. It's especially frustrating from up here because we're used to this. Okay, we have social engineering at City Hall that designs our cities so that we have rich and poor mixed up all together. And we do it by taxing the rich to build low-income housing projects. We build neighborhoods with both types of housing integrated with each other. Not only is it not weird to us, it's expected, and we think it's weird that people don't think it's obvious. You will hear the odd grumble about how this is communism. It obviously isn't, right? But most of us not only don't mind, we understand that it's beneficial because we don't end up with these big neighborhoods full of poor people because we make sure it's all mixed up. And we make sure, and we accomplish it being all mixed up by actually distributing the wealth from the rich to the poor. So we don't have this debate about gentrification in the same way, right? Now, the language finds its way up here, right? And it gets thrown around, but it's usually very badly applied by people that don't really understand what they're saying, right? We get that a lot. It's the same thing as with the CRT, right? People start using critical race theory, and they talk about, how blacks have a history of. It's just not true. The only descendants of slaves that we have in Canada were brought over in the Underground Railroad. And there's very few of them, right? You just, I mean, I don't doubt the validity of the theory as it applies to Georgia or South Africa, but it doesn't really make any sense to Toronto, and you're not going to get anywhere by trying to apply it to Toronto. And likewise, when you talk about gentrification in Canada, you have to put it into context of the fact that it's a different country, and to the extreme discredit of Canada and Canadian academics. Okay, a lot of times they don't do that. They just pick up the language, they pick up the narrative, and they make no attempt to adjust it to a different country with a different culture, a different governing structure, and a different reality. So when you hear this, a lot of times it's just cluelessness, right? And it doesn't make any sense. The major reason it doesn't make any sense is because you're often talking about city-owned property. Because we have this in Canada. We have large amounts of housing that are owned by the city. And the fact that we're previously owned by the federal government, but through a series of downsizing ended up owned by the city. So we're not talking about market rents. When we talk about gentrification in Canada, we're rarely talking about increases in market rents. What we're talking about instead is about the imposition of market rents. Because there weren't market rents there in the first place. The poor areas in Canada are generally not characterized by market rents. They're characterized by social subsidized housing. And when we have displacement, it's not because the rents are increasing. It's because the city is selling off property because they're not taking care of what they should be, right? And so when we are talking about market rents, the very rare circumstances that we are, the only reason why we are talking about that is because the city has a long way to get into subsidized housing, meaning that the city isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. And the real solution in the Canadian context is that it's not that we need to stop development, but we need to boost it, right? The only reason why we're having this discussion is because the city has not built enough subsidized housing. If the city built enough subsidized housing, then the talk about market rents would not happen at all, except for people that just want to talk about, American problems in Canada without adjusting or even studying it. And you'll see this, right? You'll see people talking about issues in Canada cite statistics from New York or California, as though that's applicable, as though that's, and of course it isn't, right? Statistics for Los Angeles are meaningless in Toronto. They just are. And not in the sense that they're meaningless. Not in the sense that, if you're living in Los Angeles and you want statistics for, you might realize that statistics for New York are probably not going to work in Los Angeles just because they're really far away. Despite the fact that, the culture is not that different. The economic systems are broadly similar. It's not true in Toronto. If you want statistics for Toronto, you'd be better off getting statistics, or you want comparable, you'd be better off getting statistics from Stockholm. That's a better comparison. Or Geneva. Or maybe Glasgow. But not Los Angeles. It's just not good. But you see it all the time, right? And it takes a careful thinker to say, no, don't do that. It's bad methodology. So yeah, we get these debates, and they sound similar, but they shouldn't. And when they do, it's because people aren't thinking clearly, right? Bottom line is that anything that brings money into the city should be viewed positively. And if it creates, unintended consequences, it's up to the city council to adjust to those consequences, not to try and reduce its own tax base, right? So the heat is welcome, but it's also made me kind of sleepy. So slept a little bit more than I wanted to today. On top of that, I'm just bombarded with information. I gotta just run through it slowly and go through it. I've decided that I'm gonna have to do this a long way. I'm gonna do this one at a time, right? And slowly, methodically, which means I'm gonna get everything back up on Bandcamp first. And as I'm getting everything up on Bandcamp, I'll get all the information off into the Word document. I'll rebuild my Facebook page. And then once I've got that there, then I'll build the Aleph Disc Flask. Right? So rather than do kind of everything in sync and build it all up, it's more like, let's just one thing at a time. First things first is I need to get the Bandcamp page up. It is a really, it's just there's just so much information, and it's daunting by terms of sheer bulk, right? It's going to be like 40 releases with like 3 days worth of music, like 500 pages worth of writing, and that's just like the first period that's just up until the year 2000, right? So it's just like it took me a long time to get here. I mean, I've been spending the last 20 years building this, right? So now it's here, and it's just like, how can I, like when I first started this, it was just like I had a bunch of stuff, and I can do it in linear order. The only thing I was really building was the Bandcamp page, right? But now I've got the Bandcamp page, I've got the DVDs, I've got the Blu-ray discs, I've got the Facebook page, I've got the journal, I've got all these things, and I want them all in sync with each other. And because I'm a neurotic, perfectionist fetishist, I need to have it all like aligned. Like nothing can be out of order, right? I can't have a typo across I guess you can say across platforms, across mediums. Like it's got to be all like perfect. And when I get the Blu-ray disc, it's got to have everything, right? So it's like, if I do it sort of one presentation aspect at a time, from the least complex to the most complex, then we can at least build it from there, right? So the least complicated thing is the Bandcamp page, because it's really just a question of republishing things and getting the data to move it to the Word document, and then from there, right? Which means that this is going to be a multi-step process, and it's going to take longer than expected. Everything takes longer than expected, right? But that's what I'm doing. I think I'm more awake now than I was before, and so let's take a run through this. I don't know how the vlogging aspect of this is going to come up, because I'm not actually like finishing anything, right? It's more just like right now I'm not, anyways. Right now it's just a copy paste operation. So I don't know. Let me get done what I'm doing, and we'll see if we want to talk about this or not. Okay, so I just want to be clear that I am now going through the gear rebuilding process as well. So this is where I will put in the first part of this from December. Yeah, it was from back in December. So this is the basic gear rundown from December, and yeah, I'll be back to doing this on a weekly basis. So this is Monday, and I'll bring the next piece of gear in next Monday. I don't know when that's going to be, but we'll have a talk about it then, and we'll get back to that series as well. The Facebook doesn't matter, right? So that's the thing I need to worry about the least. I don't care about Facebook anymore, right? So, but I mean, I've got it all listed for the first demo. I've republished my first 3 demos, well, the first 2 demos and recycled. And now I need to listen to them over everything. I need to copy the data off first, right? So that's what I'm going to be doing tonight, is I'm going to be listening to the first demo through as many ways as I can, and this has to be active listening, right? So it's not like I'm listening and typing, it's that I'm listening. I'm sitting carefully listening, not doing anything else. So I am back at it. How long is it going to take? Well, it's a 100-minute demo, and I got to listen to it on at least 5 or 6 different sources. Let me think here. I'm going to listen to it on the laptop through 2 different sets of headphones and a set of speakers. I'm going to listen to it through that sound card because it's the only one that's in the machine right now. I'm going to listen to it through the MP3 player and also through the Audigy in the other room. I can probably do at least 1 set of headphones. We'll see how that works out. It's late, so tonight it's going to be basically through here. I guess I'll turn the machine on tomorrow. But this is the base setup, and this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to copy all the data off and then get listening. I guess I'll probably want to stop and eat at some point in between as well, but this is... Okay, I think, yeah, I'm focused. Remaining shows for the month, like I said, the Screaming Females is scratched out. I'm considering checking out Steve Rake on Tuesday night. Right now that feels a little iffy. I have an appointment on the 23rd, which is the same day as Juliana Barwick. And barring some catastrophe at the doctor's appointment, I think it's pretty clear I'm heading to that. This is actually an important doctor's appointment. I'm getting my ears checked out to figure out what the hell has been wrong with my side of my neck for years, really. They're either going to determine that I've had an ear infection for 10 years, or maybe that there's something broken on that side of my face. It is possible that I have a broken jaw or something, or something fractured, something that never set right. Right? Like, it's not actively broken, but there might be something in there that didn't set right from a fall that I had about 10 years ago. And if they can't find anything, then I'm going to have to start thinking about, did I have a stroke at some point? Is there a tumor in there? So this is a grim statement, but it's the actual truth. It's been screwy for so long that if it was a tumor, I'd be dead by now. That's the actual truth. So while I think I have every reason to be a little bit worried about the idea that there may be a tumor on the side of my face, I'd be dead by now because it's been so long. So I should really probably not be as worried about it as I should be, because it would have killed me already. Like, one does not walk around with a cancerous tumor in their face for 10 years, right? So what is it then? Like, did I have a stroke at some point? Is there some brain damage in some motor functions? Is there possibly a degenerative disease like MS? Something like that, right? I don't know. But I'll have some idea of that when I walk out of the appointment on the 23rd, which is what? Thursday? I think it's Thursday, right? Yeah, Thursday. I also found out that there's a Guns N' Roses concert on Thursday, so that's going to be an annoyance going back and forth, right? I gotta deal with these fucking Guns N' Roses fans. I am annoyed enough by hockey fans. I'm gonna want to kill myself at the bus stop if I get stuck with Guns N' Roses fans. But More to the point is that it's going to be a pain in the ass going over, right? So my appointment's at 1:30. I may go over early to avoid them, and then I don't know, get a hot dog or something when I'm there, and hang out there for a bit. The other thing about this place is, but we don't need to talk about this because, yeah, I may come back a little drunk, a little more drunk than I intend to get. We'll see how that works out, but I'm kind of hoping I can get in early enough so that I'm not. I'm gonna have to walk right by them. It's at Ford Field. Yeah, I'm walking to the MoCAD. Ugh. And it's enough to make me want to stay in. Guns N' Roses fans are the worst idiots on the planet, right? Like, it's gonna be a bunch of violent, misogynist douchebags. How do I avoid that, right? It may actually be enough to get me to stay home, just to avoid them. I don't know. We'll find that out on Thursday. But for now, anyways, I got a few days of. I should at least be done listening by Tuesday night, right? So we'll figure that out from there. I'm also going to want to talk about this as I go through. This particular demo, it's like most of the songs I have talked about, they're remakes, right? Because I was redoing it for the instrumental record last winter around Christmas. Right, that's the last thing I did. So like, there's a lot of lengthy discussions of most of the material already, and I don't really have a lot to add to it besides that. But maybe we'll have a talk about the actual record at some point as well. I think it's clear that we switched over, and in fact, this is probably the beginning of a new chapter of a new series too. It's what? Yeah, it's a month, so this is here we are, Series 8. I'm still uploading. I uploaded the blog from June 8th this morning, just to get you an idea. I think it's going to be a while before the stuff starts coming up, right? So I think at the least well, yeah, I guess once I start copying this, I can start doing some quicker uploads, right? So that's yeah. Okay, so I gotta get back to it. So why are they so racist in Europe all of a sudden, anyways? It's a good question. And you hear a lot of the kind of arguments about, economics and stuff, and there's no doubt something to that. This is an argument that I haven't heard before, and I'm going to repeat it because I think it's pretty smart. And probably close to being true, at least partially. I need to remember that I'm not wearing pants, so I don't go through that same problem that I had before. What he's saying is that after World War II, there was a lot of political correctness in Germany, for lack of a better term. People stifled their speech, right? People were afraid to come off sounding nationalistic. The slightest little transgression was always blown out of proportion. Everybody was very, very conscious to ensure that nothing like what happened during the Second World War ever happened again, right? Everybody was constantly policing each other, and maybe they needed to do that for a little while, and who knows? I wasn't there, and I certainly didn't live through it either. But, maybe that was for the best, right? But then after 9/11, that kind of broke down a little bit, and you started hearing people say other things. And once, you got that little bit of encouragement, it was like people, they lost their inhibitions, right? And then all of a sudden, being a racist is a process of expression, right? Racism becomes a way to free yourself of the shackles of society that they have on you, right? That's a dangerous analysis because it would suggest that any society that attempts to police its speech is going to end up with an inevitable backlash. And that perhaps, well, I mean, 9/11 wasn't even in Europe, right? It was in the United States, of course. So, that's a pretty weak fracture point. Um, Whether what he's saying is absolutely accurate or it's a little bit accurate or even broadly inaccurate, I think it's an interesting lens to look at the situation from, and something that I won't forget soon, because I would suspect that there's probably more than a little bit of truth to the idea that well, I mean, it's any system that tries to repress emotions gets that reaction, right? You could look at Catholicism, right? Catholicism represses sexuality, and there's like widespread phenomena of Catholic girls, especially. They go through, these hypersexualized realities because they spend their whole lives being told to repress it. Now, I don't know if that's. I think maybe that era is over. I know I've met more than a few Muslims that could say the same thing about themselves, right? So, and I think that that's a generally acknowledged aspect of human desire. That when you repress things like that, well, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the old saying, if you bottle up your emotions, they'll come exploding back up, right? I think that that's really just what he's trying to get across. I don't know how you'd measure that, right? It's entirely rhetorical analysis, but I suspect there's probably a lot to it, and like I say, that's I hadn't heard that before, but I likely will not forget it soon. So just noting that and transmitting it across the interwebs. It's been a weird morning. It's about 11 o'clock. I don't know. I guess I slept for an hour or something. But I didn't even really sleep. It was more just like I lied down. Like 5 to 7 or something. So I haven't really slept. I guess I'm still going on my day from yesterday. And in fact, I didn't really sleep yesterday either. So this is strangeness. But I'm wide awake. I think it's kind of I'm not bitching about the air anymore, but I don't know. I don't know how people live with air conditioning. It's just like all this fake air. I don't know. Like it would drive me. It does drive me nuts. I can't handle it. Anyways, I am charging. I thought my MP3 player was charged. I guess I did some editing this morning, but it was more like one of those points where it kind of just drags on kind of thing, and you think you're almost done, but then you look and the next thing is done, so you gotta do that. And every time you're about to stop, there's something else to do. So, in fact, maybe I could argue that that's more or less what I've been doing since this morning. I don't know, there's a black hole there. That's what life's been like the last couple of months. So, anyways, I've got this charging, and I should get some listing done this afternoon. I can tell you what's going to happen, though. I'm going to get this charged, I'm going to put the headphones on, and I'm going to fall asleep. It's going to have to happen. But that's fine. I'm going to try to move around in a couple different spots around the house to see if I can get much of a difference. I'm going to start with the new phones, and then go from there. But I mean, I want a really rigorous testing. I'm pulling my hair out over the liner notes for this because I want to eventually have documents uploaded with all of the different journal rants. With this particular record, it's kind of, there's not really much to add for this particular disc, right? It's just like all the stuff that's already there. I'm going to do some listening and some combining and everything else before I get anywhere further. And see, I know there's ultra reality information coming. That's the thing, right? So it's just like, what's the point if there's going to be ultra reality information coming? But I know that when I get to the next batch, there's going to be a lot more writing, and then I'll want to split it off. But then if I'm going to do that, I'll want to. I'm thinking what I probably want to do is just like get all the information together, and then once it's all together, then I can break it up. Like I said, this is just information overload, right? I know that when I get it all onto the Aleph disk, it'll make more sense. Right now, it's just kind of a mess. Like I say, when I get flustered like this, it's just one thing at a time. And then once I start focusing on a thing at a time, then it works itself out, kind of thing. So right now, the focus needs to be on listening to this very old, messy demo, just to get my ears set. And the machine's got to come on. I'm going to wait until the peak of the temperature is going to be this afternoon, and the temperature will start coming down a little bit later. As far as I can see, I think that I'm just going to keep the windows open, or at least a few of them open, just because I don't want to. If I'm going to have the heat on all summer, then I don't want to be stuck with the dry air. I want to get some humidity in. I don't know. This is it wasn't like this last year. I don't know what he did up there. I may have to just go up and talk to him, tell him, explain to him, listen, if you're gonna crank the heat all summer, I'm gonna crank the heat. Sorry, if you're gonna crank the air all summer, I'm gonna crank the heat all summer. And this isn't beneficial to anybody. You're gonna have to turn your air down. I'm sorry, but if what you need to have the temperature in your space is to alter the temperature in my space, then you can't have that. So you can make a choice between just turning it down or paying for me to crank the heat. Either way, it's because I doubt that he's got the temperature what he wants up there, right? How can he? I've got the heat cranked and I've got the windows open. It must be affecting the temperature upstairs, but he's affecting the temperature down here. So it's I don't care what the temperature up there is, and I don't care if it affects him. I care about being able to control the temperature down here, and I think the feeling is mutual, right? So it's kind of just like a stalemate. Like I say, I'm gonna get this finished charging, and I can tell you what's gonna happen is I'm gonna fall asleep. But let's do this anyways, and I'd say the chances that I'm going to the show tomorrow are almost zero because my head's locked back in place. I'm going to be. In fact, I probably won't even go to the show on the 23rd. We'll find out, but as long as my head's locked in place, it's locked in place. And once I'm done listening to it a bunch of times, then I'll figure out what I want to do as far as the commentary is concerned. The more I think about it, it's like it doesn't make sense to get these documents up until I build the Aleph disks. It's just that I wanted everything, I wanted to start and run through it and get everything up, but I can't do that. I can do that from a musical aspect, right? So let's focus on getting all the music done first, and then once all the music is ready, and there are still mixes I need to do for that period around the second disc. So let's get that all finished, and then once that's all up, then I can start worrying about getting the, yeah. Because I have to build the ellipsis before I can get the information up. And I have to finish the alter reality before I can. Do I really want to do the alter? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. If I just X'd out the alter reality, but then why did I shut down Death Koalas? Right. I set this all up for. I was baked when I thought this up. I should have waited until I was sober before I thought this through. This is, but I mean, I made my bed and I'm gonna lie in it. So I gotta deal with this. I need to get the machine on. Because once I get the machine on, then I'll be able to look at how I'm storing things, and that'll help. Right. I gotta listen to this first before I do anything. There's an article at Politico here explaining that Wall Street's gonna have a fit if Clinton picks Warren as VP. I think that what the article is articulating is what I would expect Hillary's logic to be. She wants an insider to help her get an agenda through, and Warren is consequently not just useless, but a potential liability. Now, let's take a step back here and talk about politics, though. I think that that's very much true, right? But does Hillary think that she needs Warren to win Sanders supporters? If she does, one could make an argument that this is a kind of smoke and mirrors, right? See, I've been pushing back against the idea that Warren is anyway left wing. I think she's a Republican from a past era and kind of a fish out of water. There's a pretty big swath of space to the left of Ted Cruz before you get to be called left wing, after all. She's a good way to the right of Sanders still. Rumor has it that she's even the author of Clinton's bizarrely Calvinist debt-free tuition plan that would convert students into slave labor for corporate interests, but would keep them out of debt. So, we'll keep you out of debt, but you got to work in a sweatshop for 6 hours a day while you're in school. And truthfully, it'll probably keep them out of graduation too. It's hard to study when you're making shoes for Nike. It's the next logical step of the school-to-prison pipeline system, really, which, frankly, is going to consider spending resources on your schooling pointless unless you're getting a scholarship. That's the actual truth nowadays, okay? That's the part that nobody wants to acknowledge. If you're not getting a scholarship, then you're wasting your time in school anyways, right? And so that's the way the system's actually designed, is that the kids that are going to get somewhere don't pay to go to school. And the kids that are never going to get anywhere do pay to go to school. And they pay the schooling for the kids that are going to get somewhere. But that's not really what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is more. That doesn't sound so scary. And if you're Wall Street, and I don't really see why Wall Street would think that Elizabeth Warren is so scary. Because she's really kind of right up their alley if you really understand her policy proposals properly. So what's going on here? I mean, what I see here is not a reason that she wouldn't get the pick. It would be a reason that she would, because she's the reformed Republican, right? she is very much like Clinton in a specific way. She spent most of her life as a Republican. She's a very much a right-leaning Democrat. Like, what is this? Like I say, could it be smoke and mirrors? It might be if Clinton thinks that she really does need Warren to help her beat Trump, right? However, I think that that's a little bit of a creative reading. Rather, I think that what they're trying to get across is that Elizabeth Warren doesn't have those backroom channels, right? And so she's useless as a VP pick. I haven't seen Bill's name thrown around, okay, but he might honestly be her ideal choice because that's what she wants. She wants somebody who can make backroom deals of questionable legality. That's the number one pick for the job. Right? The number one qualification for the job is you have to be able to help Clinton carry out corrupt deals. And the second thing is you got to be a foreign policy hawk. Because if you're not a foreign policy hawk, the deals she wants are not going to make sense to you, right? So, arms deals with Saudi Arabia, for example. There's a fly in here. Those little ones. That kind of thing. That's what she's going to do. That's what she does, right? She works for the arms industry. She sells guns. That's her major job, right? So, I mean, from what she's thinking about, this isn't going to be a political pick. It's going to be a policy pick. She doesn't really want to pick somebody that's going to help her win. I don't think she thinks she needs someone that's going to help her win. I think that she thinks she can win on her own. She wants to pick somebody that's going to help her with policy. And what is her policy? Corrupt deals and war. Corrupt deals for war. She's, in a lot of ways, she's Dick Cheney on steroids. Okay? And that's what we're going to get. If or when she wins. Okay? So there is that obscure reading that this is, how do you, calm the nerves of Sanders supporters is you make it look like Wall Street is really scared of her, even though, she works for Wall Street, right? Smoke and mirrors. But I think that, in fact, she doesn't have those connections that Clinton wants on a policy level. And that's why she's an unlikely pick. I still think Franken is the only pick I've seen that I'd actually support, but like I say, I've been clear that I don't expect her to pick somebody I'd support. Whoever she picks is primarily going to be a hawk. It's the biggest thing, because that person has to help her sell, or has to help her get or carry out arms deals, because that's going to be her major role as commander-in-chief, is to facilitate the weapons manufacturers in the United States find markets primarily in the third world. That's going to be her major role as president. That's her big deal. That's what she's going to do, right? And so she needs somebody that can help her do that. And Warren is not that person.